Well, Grain Farmers of Ontario is calling on all parliamentarians to step up action on current supply chain challenges. Well, host of Real Ag Radio, Shaun Haney, joins us now with the latest on that effort. Shaun, as always, thanks for your time here this morning. Now, which inputs or supplies is the GFO most concerned about right now?
Hey, Jenna, great to be with you here this morning. So, I think there's a lot of concern about some crop protection products like glufosinate and glyphosate. But I think the biggest concern that the Grain Farmers of Ontario has to do with fertilizer. And as we're only about 14 days away from planting kind of beginning in the good part of Ontario, this has become extremely very much a critical situation. RealAgriculture and Agri-Studies did a survey of 450 farmers across the country 2 weeks ago. And the farmers from Ontario told us that only 10% of farmers in Ontario have fertilizer already on the farm. Now, we know typically that there's a low percentage that do in a given year in Ontario compared to Western Canada, but this is putting a lot of pressure in a year like this, really on ag retail to make sure that this all happens. And the GFO is clearly very concerned about it.
So what is the GFO actually asking for them to accomplish?
We've got a list of three things. One is to ensure the fertilizer that they need arrives on time. Grain farmers are asking the federal government to use everything they have in their toolbox to help make fertilizer arrive in time for planting. I think this request has to do with what happens with some of the sanctions on fertilizer that was coming out of places like Russia and Belarus based on the war in Ukraine. Number two, to ensure fair market prices. Grain farmers are urging the government to employ common sense solutions that would increase the availability of fertilizer products and provide needed relief. And finally, also mentioning financial support and making sure that parliamentarians have farmers back. They mentioned in their release that financial supports need to be explored as there is nothing within the current business risk management suite, essentially the Canadian version of the Farm Bill, that will provide the support that farmers may need if worst case scenarios are realized on prices for fertilizer and fuel. So fuel getting a mentioning there as well. So those are the three things the GFO is bringing up.
Shaun, before we wrap things up, what is the level of optimism for this cropping season?
Yeah, I think as I talk to farmers every week on Real Ag Radio in Ontario, there's a lot of optimism. There's concerns about fertilizer and crop protection products and what's happening with the price of diesel fuel. But if they look at the market and relative to some of those input prices, there's money to be made on the 22 crop. Where there's a little bit more concern is really leaping ahead 12 months and thinking about the 23 crop and what margins could be in that aspect. But for now, for the 22 crop, there's an opportunity to have a profitable year, given the fact that we're just coming off of record yields on corn and soybeans in Ontario from last year.
All right. Well, Shaun, as always, thanks for your insight. Host of Real Ag Radio, Shaun Haney, on the phone with us. Remember, you can catch him on his show, Real Ag Radio. That's at 4:30 Eastern, weekday afternoons on Rural Radio 147 on Sirius XM. And, of course, we'll chat with him here on the Market Day Report again tomorrow morning.